Hello, welcome back to The Top Shelf, my Criterion review series. This is episode 101. We've actually broke the 100 mark on this series, which is something I'm very proud of, and I'm glad you're here to join me on this continuing journey as we explore my Blu-ray collection, more specifically my Criterion collection. We take a pre-selected Criterion edition. I give you a synopsis, a review, a short review if I watched it. If not, I give you my thoughts on the era of filmmaking, and we go through the supplemental features on it as well. And I'm glad we reached this mark. Still have some other series going on. I want to bring back the Top Shelf Literary Editions, finish out the afterwards, and start doing full videos like this for books again. Plus I'm working on a few short films, a film about our household cat. I'm trying to get my first feature-length film under my belt, which is something that I've been long working at. I had hoped it would be Hamlet, but Hamlet's going to be put on the back burner for now. It seems too ambitious for a native community to try to pull off. So I tried something a little more controversial, which is a critique of the native arts world and how it... yeah, I'll leave it at that. So hopefully I'll get those going soon. I'm going to try to do some table readings of the screenplay that I've completed. And I have another short video in mind, and it sort of stems off of this film in particular. Not in particular, but the things I want to talk about with this film are things I want to talk about with this new video. And what's on the top shelf for today is No Country for Old Men. This is a Coen brothers film. Of course, very, very popular. It gave an Academy Award for Javier Bardem in his portrayal of the psychopath Anton Chigurh as he pursues Josh Brolin's character across Texas in search of drug money that he's stolen. And then the whole story is told from the perspective of Sheriff Bell, played by the great Tommy Lee Jones, as he sort of follows in the wake of this damage and chaos that these two characters have sort of like inflicted upon not only in the small towns of Texas, the small rural towns of Texas, but also in the Josh Brolin character's own family, how he sort of like just poofs that once he clapped eyes on that money, as the Woody Harrelson character speaks out. A great film. I believe it won Best Picture. Yeah, I think it did. Again, I'll correct myself in the titles here. I like the filmmaking of the Coen brothers, although I would not consider myself a huge fan. I think my most favorite film of theirs will always be Miller's Crossing. Couple that with Fargo, and of course this, and probably maybe The Big Lebowski, although I've only seen The Big Lebowski once to sort of get the gist of what the humor is, and I've never really revisited that. I haven't revisited that as much as Miller's Crossing. And I know they've done some other great work. I really want to see The Tragedy of Macbeth. Because they sort of like completed the film based on an idea I had for my Hamlet film, which was to remove the iambic pentameter from the dialogue so that people can actually speak freely and be clear in their use of the dialogue. Of course, it's beautifully shot, beautifully directed, beautifully acted. And I'll talk about some of the stuff about it, but right now we're going to break out the glasses and take a look what's at the special features on here. This is, again, a 4K ultra high definition with a Blu-ray disc. I don't have a 4K player. I will probably get one long after the trend of them has vanished, much like I did with Blu-rays. This is from... Holy cow, let me get some light in here. I try to use natural lighting as much as possible. 2007, 122 minutes, color with a 5:1 stereo surround, 239 to 1 aspect ratio, which means you're going to get some bars again at the top and the bottom of the screen, much like you see now. It comes with digital remastering in 4K, approved by the director of photography, Roger Deakins. That's who I was thinking of. Beautifully shot this film. 5.1 DTS high HD master audio soundtrack, one 4K disc and one Blu-ray disc with special features. A new conversation between the filmmakers Joan Ethel Coen and author Megan Abbott. New conversations between Deakins and associate producer David DeLibretto, also featuring Abbott. Archival interviews with actors Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Tommy Lee Jones, and Kelly MacDonald. Behind-the-scenes documentary by Brolin. 3 documentaries about the making of the film featuring on-set footage and interviews with members of the cast and crew. English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing, plus an essay by author Francine Prose, and a 2007 piece on the film by author Larry McMurtry, considered one of the best Western writers out there, but a great writer overall. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I'm surprised. Because it was so big at the time it came out. But like all media, in the media landscape today, everything peaks quickly and is not thought about again. Streaming has really done a lot of, not damage, but has really changed the landscape in the terms of how we view films. Is like not many people going to movie theaters, and that media is pushed out so quickly and so fast that it's got to get on the streaming before anything. And so a movie that hits theaters will be in theaters for 2 weeks, then it's not even 3 months before it's pushed out onto streaming. They don't do home media anymore, or rarely. So you can't own a film like this anymore. Which is why I'm really grateful for the Criterion Collection for putting out tangible media like this, so that we can own it and rewatch it at our leisure. For when the streaming fails, your Blu-ray player still works. And it's because of that mass audience that sort of like made me have a few thoughts about this film. As much as I like it, I can still see sort of like the things that I view as problematic. And for one is like I'm on YouTube a lot. I've been on YouTube for close to 20 years now. My content has been varied and sporadic, so it doesn't seem like I'm here a lot. But I do watch a lot of movie reaction videos, much like everybody else, and I mainly do it as a way to see if they can see what or in a film, if they see a film the same way that I do. And this has led me to think about the ideas that people get when they watch this film, and almost to a T, except for very few outliers in some of the reaction channels, everybody's always rooting for Josh Brolin to get away with the money. And we're going into a little spoiler territory here. If you haven't seen the film, you can just skip. But I'm sure that everybody that watches these has seen these films, or at least has. And if you haven't, go ahead and skip this, because I'm going to spoil the end of this movie for everybody. They want. I'm not going to spoil exactly what happens, but I'm going to spoil sort of like the ideological tenets of this film. Everybody's rooting for the Josh Brolin character to get away because they automatically see him as the good guy. And for me, what I always thought was like, this is the reason why it's set in the 80s is that that's when this idea of Ford capitalism really started to happen. It's like the more money you get, the more successful you are deemed to be, the more you rise in society. And for the Josh Brolin character to take this money, and they say, oh, it's just bad money, people are going to use it for bad things anyway. It doesn't lessen the crime that he stole, right? and that he's actually being corrupted by this money, corrupted so much that he actually willingly breaks his family apart to sort of hold on to it. They present him as a Vietnam veteran, so this idea that he's this action guy is acceptable. But what it really does, in my mind, is that he's a Vietnam veteran. He's sort of like inured to the idea of violence and inflicting violence to protect this new thing that he's got, this idealism of success, whatever that means, right? In this new America that was the 80s. So for me, that's what a lot of people, I think, miss the point of the Josh Brolin character. He was this guy that sort of fended for himself. You know, he's actually shown hunting at the beginning. You know, he's taking care of himself, he's taking care of his family that way. And then he comes upon this easy grift of taking all this money. And suddenly his character changes, right? He's still the same person, but his idea of wanting to protect this and take it and hold on to it, sort of like he pushes his wife away, and that leads to all these other things that happen to him. And so I think a lot of people sort of miss the idea that there's this corruption of money that happens, that even though it's not as a huge level as, that's why, you know, Anton Chigurh is in the film, is like to play this contrast of various levels of what is good and what is bad. Because he isn't exactly stealing his money to provide for his family, because he's already doing that. He works as a welder. He's got his own home, or at least he rents a home. He's able to take care of him and his wife. He provides food, literally, by, you know, hunting. So he's doing all these things that he's so expected to do as a man in the society of the 80s. And then this money comes in, and he figures if he holds on to it, that somehow can improve. But what he did is he just exacerbated another crime of the drug deal and the murder that happened over this money. And that leads to more deaths in the film. And that's what the Sheriff Bell character is there for. He's there to sort of examine all of this that's happening, you know. That's why he makes the remarks, you know, I've seen the same things he's seen, and it's left an impression on me. It's his critique of the Josh Brolin character. Is like, does he see what he's doing by, you know, whatever he's done? But because the sheriff doesn't know he took the money. Or maybe he did, and then they're just realizing that, yeah, there's this wake of violence, and then there's this unstoppable thing that's you know, that's chasing him, that has no scruples. Or if there's a code of honor, that it's only up to them. It's always him, as the wife says at the end. So I think a lot of people sort of miss that point and really want to root and have a big showdown at the end between the two characters, when it's actually just Sheriff Bell's observation of the wake of this, you know, violence and, you know, theft and murder that's going on in his quiet world, that he feels like he can't get a handle on. And so that's what leads to this idea, you know, the title, No Country for Old Men, is because it's become a world where, you know, if you're holding on to these old ideas of what's true and good, then maybe, you know, maybe the world's changed around you. And when he talks to his, I believe it's his cousin in the trailer, or in his cousin's home, and they talk about how this country is hard on people, and you know, what he's got isn't something new. That sort of like is another point that really, like, I don't really care for. Of course, the country's hard, and of course, there's violence. But what Sheriff Bell's cousin equates it to is he tells a story about how their uncle was killed by a bunch of native men, just murdered on his doorstep. Because he says they said something in Indian and they rode off after just playing shot him. And he says, you know, what you got here isn't anything new. This country's hard on people. So what he was subtly doing is like, he's subtly connecting the violence of native people that native people have inflicted on white people to the psychosis of Anton Chigurh, saying like, oh, it's always been rough and it takes a real man to sort of like to handle it. But there has been violence in this country, and it's violence in this country before Columbus landed. But Native Americans have found a way to live with it for 10,000 years, to live in this country with each other for 10,000 years before, Columbus landed. So it's sort of another way of saying, all right, we're trying to excuse genocide by saying, this country's hard on people and always will be. And the violence, leads to what happened, and they don't want to think of this idea that America has been founded on these typical beliefs. And I talk a lot about this in my media education section of my life, where I do presentations on how Native Americans are represented in media, and how all these stereotypes that we have about Native Americans have been subtly been there for generations and generations, and we just pass them on to the next one. And that's a lot of it's reinforced through the media we ingest, even subtly so, like things like said something in Injun after shooting a man. What they probably said in Injun was like, oh, this guy, violated our women and took our land, right? But nobody wants to think about that part of history. They just want to say, it takes a rugged man to survive in rugged times and rugged areas. And that, we really didn't bring the worst of violence to this country. So that's leading me to sort of like do an examination of this film, maybe a little deeper depth. But so those are the two videos that I sort of want to do. One is about which led me to, these thoughts have led me to these two videos. One is a deeper examination of how, despite being a revisionist Western, that it's still a typical Western, and how it depicts Native people as a presence that isn't really there, and as a violent, savage thing. And so this other video I want to talk about is like how people are interacting now on these reaction videos, going back to making the connection back to reaction videos, of how a lot of them are starting to see more native-themed native-themed films in their reactions. Last of the Mohegans, Dances with Wolves, I saw a few of them do Thunderheart, and they all have the same like mystical, magical reaction to Native Americans that I despise. And so I thought, well, I'll talk a little bit more about my ideas of reaction videos, and maybe give 5 native-directed films that might be a really good, some really good films to react to. And I would like to be very interested in how video reactors react to something that's actually native created. So, because you don't see a lot of that happening. So those are the ideas of the 2 films I have, and this is all that stemmed from just thinking about this film again. So in that sense, again, that's what makes this film a great film, is that it still opens up ways for you to think about certain aspects of the film. And you can agree with me or disagree with me about the statements and messaging of the film, but and you're free to do so. I mean, I'm not going to beat you over the head just because you disagree with me. I've never been like that on this channel. And yeah, that's it for this episode, 101, where we get a lot more chatty about films once we break the 100 mark, I guess. But I hope you enjoyed this. So that's on the top shelf today is No Country for Old Men by the Coen brothers. Spine number, oh man. I have to put, Roger Deakins had an influence on the cover as well. Spine number 1243. So thank you for joining me. Once again, once I get more Blu-rays from the Criterion collection, another episode will spring up. I have no plans to end this series at all. So I'm glad you joined me, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you.